In 1983, my father had to cope with the significant adjustment of transitioning from the esteemed role of a principal to that of a regular teacher. Suddenly finding himself bereft of the accolades and respect he was accustomed to, and being compelled to acquiesce to another's authority, proved to be a difficult pill for him to swallow. Unfortunately, he took out his frustrations verbally on my mother, and his verbal abuse towards her became so pronounced that it caught the attention of our neighbors. The strain on my parents' marriage took a toll on my relationship with my mother. Instead of turning to my father for emotional support, she began leaning on me for the comfort and affirmation she needed. This shift in our dynamic put a significant emotional burden on me, as I felt compelled to provide both support and praise in place of what she was missing in her marriage. It became incredibly challenging for me because it seemed like I was never permitted to have a different opinion than my mother. Whenever I did disagree with her, she would become extremely upset, throw a tantrum, and even go as far as saying that I was no longer her son. It became clear to me that I had become the focal point for all of her anger and frustration toward my father, her husband. Caught in the middle, I found myself navigating a challenging family dynamic. My father displayed narcissistic tendencies, while my mother was emotionally deprived and narcissistic. Meanwhile, my older brother harbored extreme jealousy, convinced that I had entered the world with the sole intention of stealing our mother's affection away from him. In the summertime, we made a regular pilgrimage to my grandparents' home in Kristiansand. Upon arrival, my attention was immediately drawn to my grandfather, a proud and stoic figure who seemed to spend every moment absorbed in the pages of his newspaper, punctuating the stillness with the occasional puff on his cigar. In stark contrast, my grandmother embodied the quintessential image of a doting grandmother. Her days were filled with showering me with the warmth of her love, copious displays of affection, as well as thoughtful gifts. One such gift, which held particular significance, was a children's Bible. During the early 80s, my family dynamic was quite unique. My mother was an active practitioner of witchcraft, while my father had strayed from his devout Catholic upbringing. I had a deep interest in reading, but my father showed no interest in my literary pursuits. My mother strongly opposed the children's Bible, believing that I should grow up as an independent and resilient individual. It wasn't until much later that I understood her perspective was shaped by her own distressing childhood. Despite her disapproval of the Bible, neither of my parents prevented me from exploring its contents. I distinctly remember the comfort and serenity I found within its stories about Jesus, and I cherished my grandmother's advice to turn to Jesus as a friend in times of solitude. During my childhood, I often found myself feeling lonely and witnessed numerous traumatic events within our home. However, I always held my grandmother's advice close to my heart. Every time I faced difficult moments, I turned to Jesus. Reflecting on my past and the trials I endured, I attribute my well-being today to the comfort and strength I found in Jesus and the teachings of the Bible. How does the son of a witch and a Catholic end up as a Pentecostal Messianic believer after exploring New Age and Buddhism? This fascinating journey will be shared in a future blog post.